Happy, happy Halloween, Halloween, Halloween. Happy, happy Halloween, silver shamrock. Happy, happy Halloween, Halloween, Halloween. Happy, happy Halloween, silver shamrock.
It's almost time, kids. The clock is ticking. Be in front of your TV sets for the Horror-thon. And remember the big giveaway at 9. Don't miss it. And don't forget to wear your masks. The clock is ticking. It's almost time.
Happy, happy Halloween, Halloween, Halloween. Happy, happy Halloween, silver shamrock. Happy, happy Halloween, Halloween, Halloween. Happy, happy Halloween, silver shamrock.
You're listening to the Mystic Menagerie podcast, your regular descent into the world of alternative entertainment, art, and culture. Bolt the door, light the fire, and pour yourself a glass of Virgin Rouge, and let your hosts, Dan Baines and Lord Freddie Valentine, guide you through the Stygian depths of your darkest delights. Warning. Listener discretion is advised.
Hi, you're listening to the Mystic Menagerie podcast, and this is episode 2, and today is November the 13th, 2014, and this is our Halloween special show. It's slightly late, about half a month late, but you know it's the UK and it's getting gradually colder and darker, so it's Halloween pretty much for 6 months of the year over here anyway. I'm your host, Dan Baines, and I'm joined by my co-host, Freddie Valentine.
Hello. Yes, and it's been quite a crazy month for us, isn't it, really? It's been quite an exciting time, isn't it, Dan?
It has. It's obviously our first show went down very well. I think in terms of feedback, we had a kind of 95% positive, 5% I prefer the magazine, type of thing. But you can't please everybody all of the time. And I think that's what, we need to realise, that that's just the way things are and we can never please everyone.
Definitely. And the thing is, we just do what we do. That's all we can do is do what we do. And if people like it, that's fantastic. Do you know what I mean? And the thing is, a lot of people do enjoy the last podcast. I'm pleased with the response we've had. I'm pleased that people are enjoying it, and any ideas or things they want us to discuss, they can suggest them on the Facebook page, which is just the Mystic Menagerie. But put comments on there, and we'll definitely be interested in sort of hearing what you have to say and if there's anything you like featured in the show. So it's been. I'm pleased with the feedback. I'm pleased that people are enjoying what we're doing, and it's just us being us, really, isn't it?
It is. I mean, the ironic thing is as well, with the magazine, we used to, it was published. We just didn't know when it was going to be published because we could only put it out when we had enough material. Yeah, with the podcast, and it's just down to me and you, we've actually got so much material that we're struggling to fit what we want into one show. We literally got lists and lists of topics and things to discuss, which is excellent. But it just means that we're going to have to sort of sort it out between shows, and I don't think people really want to listen to us for 3 hours. So I think if we try and squeeze it in between an hour and a half and a 2 hour show per episode, I think it's definitely something we can do once a month, maybe even twice a month. It's just a great thing, and it's given the Mystic Menagerie a new lease of life. If you've come across us on iTunes and you've discovered us, obviously, the Mystic Menagerie did start off as a bizarre magic journal. However, given this is a radio show, it's difficult to convey magic over the radio. We could sit here and we could talk about sleights and different methods and stuff, and it would just be plain boring. What this show is about is all about the inspiring people and injecting a bit of imagination and hopefully giving them some food for thought on certain areas, such as the paranormal, bizarre music, films, events. But we do cover some elements of magic. So if you're into magic or not, then you will find a bit, you'll find some of it, but it isn't what we're 100% about. It's more about what goes off in the background that's going to inspire you to do whatever you do in your daily life.
Definitely. I think imagination is the most powerful tool or sleight or whatever it is you can have. I think inspiring your imagination or inspiring others' imaginations is a vital thing, because I think that's the key to experience, I feel. Whether it's a film you're watching, it's got to ignite your imagination. Whether someone's watching a magic show, it's got to ignite their imagination. If something's very dry, I don't think the imagination's ignited. And I think hopefully we can get people to, hopefully their imagination's fired, and they also get some ideas to inspire others and to use that in their own life or performances or whatever they want to do.
Definitely. I mean, in terms of popularity as well, if we look at the actual listener figures for, when did we, I think the first pilot show went out on the 15th of October. So we're almost 4 weeks since we did the last one. Bearing in mind that each magazine probably sold about 200 copies, I've been looking at the actual hits on the actual the podcast per day, and it's getting between 250 to 300 hits per day. So out of that, say, you've got maybe 1/3 of them are listening to the show in full. So that's still 100 people a day who are listening to the show. There's 100 people a day who never bought the magazine previously as well. So in terms of bringing new blood to a relatively small magic scene, I think this is going to work wonders, and it's going to bring new people and also shed new light on bizarre magic. I mean, we won't go into bizarre magic, what we think, what it is now, because it can be interpreted in different ways, and that's a topic for another show. But
definitely,
I think the fact that we're getting, we're on iTunes, we're out there for the whole world to tune in and listen. 300 hits a day isn't the BBC, it's not BBC Radio 1. However, it's a hell of a lot more than what we used to get by just having a magazine in PDF format.
Definitely. And if people are enjoying it, that's the most important thing. Like I say, we can cover, it's not just really about magic as such. I mean, we can cover all sorts of strange real-life things, strange, unusual stories, real-life situations. There's all kinds of odd things in the world. And I think bizarre magic is about the dark, it's about the unusual, about the odd. The premise of a lot of these things is the most important thing rather than the actual magic itself. So, a lot of the stuff we talk about is good from that point of view, I feel.
Yeah, definitely. So, as it's Halloween and it's our favourite time of year, I think we had better get down to business, don't you?
Definitely. Oh, definitely. Yeah, there's plenty to talk about today.
My bizarre life.
In this section, we're going to have a quick chat about what me and Freddie have been up to. We are full-time weirdos, so we don't live the Bruce Wayne lifestyle by going to work in the daytime and being Batman at night. We're Batmen full time. So Freddie, what's been filling your time since we last spoke?
Well, I'll say my life is pretty weird. The things I get involved in. I mean, for a start, I've been doing a lot of seances. I do paranormal events. Ghost hunts and seances. I've been doing a lot of seances and working with a few other people. They've been very popular events. They've been very good. And also I give readings as well. But I've got a big event lined up in December. I have a big seance which is practically sold out. And also doing the cabaret shows. I do a lot of cabaret shows. So I've got one which is next week, I think it is, next Friday, which is a new venue we're trying out. Okay. And I've been doing a few bits and pieces here, singing cheesy songs and stuff like that, as well as sort of,
It's a bit of a variety show, isn't it? You've got like all sorts.
We have burlesque dancers, we have magicians, we have mind readers, we have comedians, we have singers. In the past, we've had ventriloquists. We've had a friend of mine, Tristan, who inflicts pain upon himself as part of his act, which goes down well.
Sounds good.
But yeah, I mean, people like it. It's almost one of those acts where people cringe and look away, but they can't look at the corner of their eyes. Do you know what I mean? Their hands covered over their face, and they're looking at the corner of it, and oh my God, are you really doing that? But the thing is, and the same, I like to confront people with something they haven't seen before. The acts that I book tend to be not the ones that are on the circuit all the time. Because if you look at the London or the UK comedy circuit or the cabaret circuit, it's the same acts in rotation. There's a lot of backslapping going on and people giving each other gigs, whereas I try to pick things that I personally like. So if I see someone I like or I think is good or unusual, I put them on, So we always have a different platform. And it's very much structured like a 70s show, where me and Holly, the host, we sing a song, and then we have an act on, then we have an interval and a big finale. So we have like a slot for magic, a slot for burlesque, a slot for comedy, a slot for some musical comedy or something like this, and a variety act, and an unusual act. Next one, we've got a circus performer called Corey Pickett, who juggles with like cutlasses and stuff like this. Excellent. So we always have like an unusual act. So it's the structure. It's very much a structured show. And the same way that the seances are very structured. in a way as well. You know, we've got one of those next month.
Is that in Datchet as well? Is it in the same
Datchet?
place?
Yeah. I mean, it's like next to Windsor, which is like, again, history there, massive history.
Yeah, I came over. It was a long time. It was probably like 2 years ago since I came to your last one. But it was we did the ghost walk around the graveyard there, and the actual. Is it the same location at the hotel?
We've got a hall. We've got 2 locations there. One is the hotel, which is booked around now because everyone's Christmas parties there. Yeah. And the last thing you want in silence when you're sitting around a Ouija board is loads of pissed up people singing "Come On Eileen," or whatever is the song that they sing now. I suppose it'd be "Sexy and I Know It." I suppose the current that kind of thing. So we've got this hall. It's a village hall. It's really good because it's a massive hall, and it's really creepy. There's a stage there as well. And we have the séance on the stage, but in the hall part we can have chairs set up. Okay. And we can give like a talk on. I bring some of my unusual objects down there. We do pendulum work and stuff like that, and it's also quite near for the ghost. We have the ghost walk as well. Yeah. So in the hall part, we do experiments with people and stuff like that. Not medical ones, obviously, sort of paranormal experiments. Yeah, exactly. We do scrying and stuff like this. Yeah. You know what I mean? There's a lot of psychic experiments going on, EVP and stuff like that. So it's a really good. I mean, this one's. We've only got a few spaces left. It's practically sold out now.
Okay, cool.
So it should be a really good night. It's we're looking forward to that one because we had some weird thing happen there last time. I was doing this EVP, like a radio tuned into a weird frequency, and this voice came through like this piano music, and it's a bit strange. We went outside. There was a piano dumped outside, and the lady that runs the hall said the bloke who for years had played piano in their pantomimes and local variety shows and stuff had died recently. And that was his piano dumped outside. So
you actually got a sound of a piano coming through on the EVP and stuff. Yeah, excellent.
And some angry voice. So was it him angry that his piano was dumped?
Or pissed off that you're in his hall doing trying to contact spirits. It could have been like some like religious like maniac or something.
It could have been, yeah. Or maybe you want to just get this old battered, dirty piano that had been in the rain and drag it back into the hall for him. Yeah. I mean, if it started playing ghostly piano, like at the last month we mentioned the braiding with the piano playing by itself. Yeah. If I dragged it back in and that had happened, that would have been amazing.
I mean, I wish I could make it more to your seances. I mean, as the crow flies, we probably only live about 40 miles away. But for those who aren't from the UK, me and Freddie live on what's probably the worst stretch of road in the entire world, called the M25, which is the London Orbital. If I want to get anywhere, it's just going to take... It's just chance. You just never know how long it's going to take you. It could take me 50 minutes to get to Freddie. It could take me 3 hours. And, when you're doing that at sort of 7 o'clock at night, when it's work, kicking out time at work, it's guaranteed that you're not going to get there. So
no, that time, remember, one time I was going to come over to yours once for barbecue. We sat out on a Saturday, it was.
That was it.
And there was a traffic jam on the motorway. And we was literally cars at a standstill. We was in the middle of it. And it was like absolutely crazy. No one was moving at all. No. And we was there for I think 3 hours. I think just sat in this
ridiculous.
Traffic. People were getting out and shouting at each other. And it's quite a hot day, as I remember rightly. And we had to drive off the motorway, but it's like a weird stretch of road. You know what I mean? Try to work our way out through that way. I don't think it's supposed to go down there actually, but we managed to work our way out from this bit of road eventually. But it was just stuck in this traffic. It was like the episode of One Foot in the Grave where he's stuck in the traffic jam. And I was a bit, I don't believe it. I was a little bit like that because if you want to get somewhere, I hate being late for things. It's a bit like clockwise, and I was really frustrated about being stuck in this traffic. But it is a nasty piece of road. If something happens wrong there, that's it. It's out for the whole day, isn't it?
Yeah, there's a moral to the story, and that is don't live in Kent if you want to travel to any other part of the UK. So it might be very picturesque and the Garden of England and all that, but it's absolute nightmare to get anywhere. But hey ho, life goes on, and I'm sure we'll hook up again at some point. And
definitely,
yeah. So, and you're a full-time psychic as well, I believe.
Yeah, I do readings, and I do readings on the phone and just tarot readings. And most of these readings, they're usually about romance or work, that kind of thing.
That's what everyone wants to know about, though, isn't it?
Generally, that's what exactly, career and stuff like that. So it's just general readings like that. And that's I enjoyed it doing. I enjoy talking to people. You know what I mean? You speak to different people every day. You get some really nice people. You get a few wild people. But that's dealing with the public, dealing with people. But there's some very nice people. And it's something that I enjoy doing. That's part of what I do. So there's quite a lot going on. It's almost like it's like what I do. They say there's different sections. Do you know what I mean? It's all different things, and some of it is what we're doing here. Seances, cabaret, readings, that kind of stuff as well. So it's quite a chocker. Really.
What about Halloween itself? Did you do anything on Halloween?
I had a few private events that I was doing around Halloween, around people's houses and stuff like that. Sometimes we have these tarot parties or Ouija board parties where we go into people's houses and do sessions with them. They hire us, like, and I had those on Halloween. Excellent. So it's kind of Halloween night itself. I actually had a night off, a night in. Yeah. Because obviously it being Samhain and everything else, so we had quite a relaxed night that night. But the thing is, it's like I say, it's Halloween is quite different here. It's a different sort of event, really.
It is.
And sometimes people, they don't want something that's too real or to do with the paranormal. They tend to want something that's people dressed up in outfits from Asda, dancing around. I did a Halloween gig, actually. There was a really good comedy club we've performed at, called the Sacre Bleu Comedy Club. Yeah. And they had to have a house band there, and me and Holly were guests, and we sang a few Halloween themed songs. I did a version of the Monster Mash.
Okay.
So that was good fun. Yeah. That was a really good laugh. So it's quite a busy time of year. It's sort of like our Christmas, I suppose, isn't it?
It is. Yeah. It's. It always falls on a kid's holiday. You see, I've got 2 young children, so for us, it's also a time when we go on holiday. So even though it is my busiest time of year, unfortunately, I'm usually not at the helm. Like manning the pumps. I'm usually somewhere else. So
right.
So this year we experienced an American Halloween, first time ever. So we flew to Florida and did the whole Disneyland Orlando thing, and it so happens it fell on Halloween. So it was very interesting to see how it differs from over here. And I think we'll go into it a bit later on in greater depth, because
definitely
Halloween in the UK, it's only really been popular since the early 80s, and we'll discuss why that was, but it's very different. First of all, obviously there's the temperature difference, 30 degrees as opposed to whatever it was over here. I mean, I think it was quite mild here, but we still get the crap weather and the darkness,
grey and rainy, really, isn't it?
Whereas over there it was just like bright and hot and sunny, and it just, I don't know, it's the whole Halloween and Christmas thing in a hot country. I don't ever know how anyone can feel festive in Australia at Christmas when it's baking hot and you're having a barbecue on the beach dressed as Santa. I can't, I just can't get into the mood of things, and especially with Halloween as well.
I remember Frank Sidebottom did a song. Frank Sidebottom, the fantastic sadly departed entertainer, called "Christmas in Australia."
Okay.
And the chorus went, "Christmas in Australia is different from Christmas here. They have sun and lager, we have snow and beer." It's lyrics like the comparisons. It's a really funny song. It's probably on YouTube, but it's a great song. It's very funny. It's about the difference between England and Australia.
Good old Frank Sidebottom, mate. So it was very bizarre. I'll say we'll cover it later on in. Actually, I think we'll devote a bit of a section to it. So we went there. And really, before that, I was just revamping the Lebanon Circle website. For those listeners who don't know what Lebanon Circle is, it's my prop and design business. So create illusions, also do things for TV and stage, and do a bit of consulting here and there. But if you want something, creepy and slightly, if you're looking for like Victorian, Gothic type props, it's the place to go. So everything is kind of tailored in that direction. There's a few of the bits on there that aren't so creepy, but it tends to be the one-stop shop if you're after that type of thing. So I was just revamping the site, really, not realising that if I revamped it, it would generate so much interest that the orders just flooded in while I was away, and obviously, while I was away, I couldn't fulfill half those orders because I was thousands of miles away. So I was chomping at the bit to get back, really, and get building and get these orders out, which are all, now I'm back at home. I'm in the studio, 12, 13, sometimes 14 hours a day getting stuff done. So this is a bit of a break for me. It's nice to sit down for once and have a chat, as opposed to, in the studio talking to my dolls and whatever else I've got lying around. It's a bit of a lonely job.
Yeah, definitely. It's like I talk to people on the phone about readings, but I talk about weird stuff now. I've only got a budgie here, my budgie Terry, I talk to. So he's like your version of your dog.
But at least he talks back verbally.
He does talk back. Yeah,
mine talk back in my head.
So I hope maybe he's talking to me in my head, and maybe I'm just thinking that he's speaking. He says "all right, geezer" when I walk in the room, which I do like. I like that. It's because I say it to him, I think. But,
it doesn't predict the horse races like the one in the Carry On. Isn't it Carry On Behind with the horse?
Yeah. Carry on. Yeah, your convenience.
Carry on, your convenience. That's it. Yeah.
And the horse, I remember. This is how much of a Carry On nerd I am. The horse was called Pee-wee the Third. That's the one. But he'd actually predict the Eurovision winner because, like, we had the Eurovision Song Contest on. He likes music. He likes different music to me. He's into ZZ Top. So I had to buy a CD just for him. But we had the Eurovision on, and he was chirping along to song. And I said, the one that he chirps the loudest to is going to be the winner.
Okay.
And he got it right. So he is a psychic budgie.
Excellent. Beats having the octopus, I suppose, for the Olympics. So, but the budgie is much more of a cuter
they're funny.
pet.
Yeah, they're cute and they're silly, like, as well. They're kind of a comedy pet because no one really has them much now. They're a 70s thing, aren't they? Really?
Yeah, I suppose you don't see them very often. I had a mate in the Navy who. When he left, he started keeping canaries to the point he had hundreds of them, and he was building like aviaries in his back garden, and it was crazy. I just didn't realise he had an obsession with them. And when he left, he just spent all of his money on canaries. It's a bit strange, but the armed forces does that to a man.
It certainly does, yeah.
You go one way or the other. Another thing I've been doing, which I know you're not a massive fan of American series, are you? So, if I was to talk about Breaking Bad or Lost and that, you'd probably, it's one thing that doesn't float your boat. However, I started watching Penny Dreadful. Have you ever heard of that one? Yeah,
that actually interests me because, I'm not really a big fan of Americans. I mean, I don't watch things like Lost and Game of Thrones, and it all seems a bit childish, and the acting puts me off. But Penny Dreadful, I've seen some trailers and clips of it, and that's one I intend to watch next. I mean, American Horror Story I'm a fan of.
Yeah.
Because I think it's well written, it's well acted. It has got the sort of, oh my God, and awesome sort of stuff in it, which does irritate me.
Yeah.
Because, but Penny Dreadful's got proper acting in it, and it looks like a good story. So is it as good as it looks?
It is. Well, when I do these things, I feel like I'm always committing myself to something when I watch a series, because obviously you've got to follow it, and it takes, you've got to commit an hour of your week every week to watch it, and I'm a bit non-committal in that respect, so I always wait to see if they renew it for a season 2 or a season 3. So I don't want to waste 13 hours of my life to watch a show get axed, and you'll never know what the outcome is on the show. So I found out it was getting renewed for a second season, so I thought, okay, I'll start watching it, and I'm up to about episode 5, and I'm pleasantly surprised. It's dark, the sets are amazing. If you're into Jack the Ripper type London, it's great. It incorporates a lot of things as well. There's Frankenstein, there's Dracula, who else is in there? There's a werewolf. It's just got all the typical Victorian horror elements, but not done blatantly. It's been done subtly, and it works well. It's very dark, and there's a hell of a lot of sex and violence in it, which for me is always a plus. So, it got my attention straight away. But, I'd recommend it. Watch the first 2 and see how you go.
Definitely. It looks interesting. I mean, American Horror Story is one I like because it's really well-written stories. It's creepy. It's quite gruesome in places.
Yeah.
And the acting is excellent in it. And the acting is what puts me off a lot of the American series. Do you know what I mean? Because there's some of them that look great in concept. And I don't remember, in the 80s, Frank Zappa had a song called Valley Girl.
Right.
And at the time, it was like how it's a valley in California where these girls who hang out at the mall spoke. And it's all, oh my God, awesome. And it's grody, man. And this song was like, nobody had heard of that speaker. It was very confined to a small area.
Yeah.
And this song was a hit single when his daughter, Moon Unit, did like a voiceover imitating these girls she heard talking down this mall. And at the time, it's like ludicrous. And people talk about that's awful. But now, practically every teenager in an American program or film talks like that. If you go on YouTube and check out the song Valley Girl, if you're listening and you haven't heard that before, at the time that sounded really weird and unusual, but it's like that film Ouija that came at cinema, and I thought, the concept is good, the story is good, and I saw the trailer and it's all like almost baby talk. My bad and awesome, and hey you guys, let's do this and stuff like that. And I thought, well, I couldn't watch it because I'd like all the characters to die. Before watching it, which wouldn't leave much of a story. There's awful.
Well, that's the whole thing with like the Blair Witch Project. I watched that and I had no sympathy for any of the characters in it. I thought, you all deserve to go into the woods and get ripped apart by some paranormal creature because you're all stupid.
Yeah, and I don't mind hammy acting. I don't mind over-the-top hammy acting. But when it's all this trying to be a Californian wisecracking attitude, it kind of makes it a bit childish for me.
Yeah. There's definitely none of that in Penny Dreadful. It's a lot of the The actors, though, are some of the, there's some real good British actors in there. There's some good American actors as well. It's not just confined to Brit.
Remember, the X-Files as a program to me had very good acting. Do you know what I mean? Generally excellent acting, and American Horror Story's up there as well. So that's why Penny Dreadful. I saw it on the trailers. And I thought this could appeal. This could be good.
Yeah, I'll watch American Horror Story once I've got rid of Penny Dreadful. But it's nice to keep your hand in, I suppose, at what's current, because if you're a performer or you're involved in alternative arts, for example, being a bizarre magician or a paranormal entertainer and stuff, the bulk of your potential audience are going to be more exposed to current media, like things like American Horror Story and Penny Dreadful. So
definitely,
it pays for you to do your due diligence and actually look at these things, because you've got to have an idea of what everyone else is looking at. You can't not watch it because
definitely.
So you have to be out there and looking at these things, I suppose.
Some things I find very difficult, though. Do you know what I mean? Particularly when it's aimed at a certain teenage audience. But I try to take in as much as I can if it interests me. Like American Horror Story's got a very good concept behind it and a very good story. That it's very serious themed. Obviously, having asylum and freak shows, they're the sort of things that most people that are into bizarre would be interested in anyway. So the ideas are very good, but what they do with it is very good. And that's kind of interesting. There's a lot of things that come out which do seem good in like that Paranormal Activity films. Again, I found it very silly. I mean,
they're dire. I just can't believe they keep renewing the franchise. I think this is probably the first year in 7 years or something they've not actually released another Paranormal Activity.
I mean, I've only seen the first one myself.
I just cannot get my head around how people. You see people. They're like, "Oh my god, I was petrified. I couldn't sleep for a whole week." Nothing happens. Nothing happens. That's unusual. I mean, stuff like that happens in my house pretty much. On a daily basis, and I just brush it off and get on with it. It's not. I wouldn't consider any of it to be scary, but Joe Public, seems to be filling their pants over things like that.
There's the whole silly idea of it. It's like they're in a house, and firstly, if they were that scared, they'd leave the house. Thirdly, they'd get the news. If you had things flying around your house and happening like that, you'd get the TV news down and say, "Come and look at this."
Yeah.
You wouldn't just sit there and just wait till they kill you, which is basically what happened. And I find the characters infuriating and the acting's terrible. And I didn't find it scary. Having gone to paranormal events and hosted them, there's better things at a real paranormal event than there is in that film. You might as well go on a ghost tour or ghost hunt with somebody. Do you know what I mean? Because you can have much more of a thrilling and exciting paranormal night than you would watching something like that. And to me, it's just very much a bland.
They're like found footage films, aren't they? They're like first person or third person, with the camera mounted somewhere. And in those situations, would you really keep filming with your little camcorder? Also, these batteries on these camcorders that they use are amazing. They seem to last for absolutely, forever. I remember my little JVC camcorder, the battery lasted about 10 minutes and that was it. It'd be dead after a full charge. So they've got amazing cameras that are able to record hours and hours of pursuit of paranormal activity. It's just it's not really my cup of tea. It's a bit crazy.
Yeah, I don't think it's well. I mean, I like to check things out. If I feel it's worth my time. Do you know what I mean? Obviously, as we're both me and you are quite busy, our time is quite precious. So things that if it's something that doesn't interest me, I have to have a strong interest for me to actually watch it, particularly a series, which is like 22 episodes in an American series, and they're like roughly an hour long.
Yeah,
that's a lot of time to invest in something.
There's a recent film. I think it came out probably earlier on this year about Bigfoot, and it's along the same lines as the Blair Witch Project and Paranormal Activity, and it's directed by Bobcat Goldthwait. Remember the chap from the Police Academy films?
Oh yeah,
right. He's directed this film. And I think I've not watched it, but I think given the fact that it's directed by Bobcat Goldthwait and it's a found footage film about Bigfoot, I think you can pretty much guess what it's like. It might be worth watching, actually. It might be surprisingly strange.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, it's a lot of things these days. I mean, like there's very few that comes out. You have to really find the gems.
Yeah.
You know, I think that I know that's me being old, but I mean, years ago, you know, you watch these Hammer films and these, you know, Amicus ones, and all these great horror films are coming out, and like the TV series we discussed on the last podcast. So you're bombarded with good stuff. Now a lot of stuff's very disappointing. There's more put into the artwork of the cover of the poster or the DVD and the description, and then you see it and it's quite hollow. There's quite a few things I've watched, horror or paranormal based films, which I've been very disappointed with. So when something does come along that's good, you know, it's worth checking out. So I think Penny Dreadful is definitely one I'm going to check out next.
Yeah, give it a go. It's subtle and it's quite, you know, it's quite depressing elements as well. Sometimes you might think you're watching something like Downton Abbey, but then something quite obscene happens that brings you back out of that. Thank God, you know.
Definitely,
it's like a period drama, but it has lots of shagging and blood in it, which for me is a winning formula.
Oh, definitely. I think it's for anyone really. That's a winning formula. So, yeah, like I say, it's you know, American Horror Stories. I say it's on that parallel. I think because there's depth to it. You know, so when people say about things like Breaking Bad, you know, they're saying, "Oh, it's a great program." The premise doesn't interest me. You know, so there's no way I'd watch it because everyone else. And the thing is everyone's saying it doesn't get good until series 4. So that's like 3 series with about 20 episodes each in it. Yeah, like 60 hours before something gets good. If that was a film and someone said this film was like 80 hours long, but the first 60 hours, do you know what I mean, are rubbish. Wait.
It'd be like watching the whole of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, but saying, but the last 5 minutes are really good. You'd be like, I'm not even going to bother. So
I saw the first one at the cinema, and I remember it's the time it was around Christmas, you know, and you haven't got much money at Christmas, and I went into this is years ago when it came out. I went to a shop and they had like Phantasm 2, or might be the Phantasm 2 on DVD. I said, should I buy that? I said to Mrs. Or should we go to the cinema and watch Lord of the Rings? It looks all right. So we decided to go to the cinema, and I sat there, and I was, all the time I was thinking, I should have bought that Phantasm 2. You know what I mean? And then
the ball is back.
Yeah, it's fantastic. That is fantastic. And I fell asleep during Lord of the Rings, and I woke up. I said, anything happened yet? Now, they're still going on about this ring. Nothing's happened yet. It's waffling. I fell asleep again. Anything happened yet? No. And I fell asleep, and I literally missed nothing. You know, I kept falling asleep for 10 minutes, then waking up, because it was so dull. And at the end, nothing. It's like watching an introduction to a film, and then it suddenly cut off. And people are saying, well, you've got to watch the next one. But when I go to cinema, I expect at least to be entertained for 2 hours. Do you know what I mean? Not to see people waffling. But
I can't sit in close proximity of other people eating popcorn and loud snacks. So I avoid cinemas if possible, unless I'm going to go and see something with the kids. And, I can put my brain in neutral. If I want to see something I really want to watch, I'll just wait till it comes out, because I just can't handle someone sat 2 seats away from me trying to eat nachos. That just does my head in. I just want to reach out and like kill him, rip the throat out or something.
Well, the good thing is, if you go to cinemas these days, they're empty. You get it out yourself. Because people do wait for like a Parrott or to come on, onto DVD or whatever. So last time, even sort of massive blockbusters. I think the last one I saw at cinema was Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, and it was half full at best. You know what I mean? On the opening night. So you do basically get a massive screen all to yourself these days with cinemas. I think that they're very much on the way out, unfortunately.
Well, if you're self-employed like us as well, you can go to the cinema whenever you want, really, can't you? As long as you put those 2 hours back in somewhere else in the day, there's nothing to stop us going to the flicks at 10 in the morning on a Tuesday and having the whole place to ourselves. So I suppose there's always that as a bonus. Exactly,
of course, yeah, definitely. So it is, it's a dying format, I think, the cinema, because it's like I say, there's not much to entice people there, because the prices are fairly expensive these days, and also people can watch them online literally as soon as it comes out. So but I do go if it's something I really want to drag me to the cinema. It's got to be something I really want to see.
Yeah, great. Okay, well, what I think we'll get into next is we'll have a look at Halloween, as it is Halloween after all. Was it's still Halloween season. I think we'll have a look at how Halloween differs between here in the UK and our friends over in the US.
Halloween night. A small American town. 15 years ago.
So when you was a kid, how did you perceive Halloween? Did you know much about it at all?
The one I only found out about Halloween when I went to see E.T. in, 1981?
That's 81, yeah.
Before that, Halloween didn't exist until E.T. came along, and then there was the section of the film where there was E.T., your sort of 3 foot tall man in a rubber suit with a sheet over his head, and all these kids going around dressed as devils and skeletons going trick-or-treating. Before that, didn't have a clue what it was at all.
Really, because that was the first time I knew there was a big fuss made about it. But when I heard about Halloween, I had a different perception of it, because I used to read a lot of books about the paranormal and witchcraft and all this kind of stuff in the 70s, and it mentioned Halloween as like this night where you can contact spirits, where the veil between the living and the dead is much closer, and it's supposed to be a witch's Sabbath. And this kind of, and there's all these sort of very sensationalized books you'd buy as a kid, these horror stories, and they mentioned Halloween as a night where gruesome things happen. So my perception of it wasn't as like a party time. It's more like a really dark, this is a time to contact spirits, a very scary time,
Yeah.
And also these comics, you remember these like DC, these American comics, there was one that came out called The Witching Hour.
Okay.
And what it was like, it's like short stories, it's a bit like Tales from the Crypt, but like this witch with warts presenting the stories, at the start of it. And they were quite gruesome, if I remember rightly. It's a long time since I read them, but I remember them being quite gruesome or quite dark, And this had a lot of mention of Halloween in it. And again, it's always a time when people want to cast spells, or people want to do something horrible, or contact a spirit, or summon the dead. It was considered to be a time for that. So my perception up until E.T. was it was a time of magical powers, a time when you could speak to dead people or raise zombies, and horrible things happened. It was like a Friday the 13th kind of thing. That's how it's perceived to me.
Yeah.
Like you say, when E.T. came out, everyone's dressed up in outfits and having a party, and it seemed a bit odd before also and eating sweets and stuff like that.
I think E.T. was probably one of the first huge blockbusters in the UK that I can remember, and it was everywhere. It was so popular that I think everyone, if they'd never had any exposure to Halloween before, they would know what Halloween was then, just purely from that section of the film. Also, the film John Carpenter's Halloween came out, I think it was like 1978, I think.
79, that's what time, yeah.
I mean, obviously at the time, when that came out, I was 4, so I'm not going to have been exposed to that. But I think by the time I was 7 or 8, I had seen John Carpenter's Halloween, and that really hit home to me what Halloween was about. Going out and it was the scare factor. It was there was, but I didn't have any knowledge why I was going trick-or-treating. It was just that everyone did it on this particular date, and there was never any for some reason I was never aware of any historical reason or tradition why I was doing it. It was purely because I'd seen American kids doing it on John Carpenter's Halloween and on E.T., and that was it.
And it's weird because in the 80s, I think after seeing it on Halloween and seeing it on E.T., because Halloween, when it was a cinema, not many people saw it because it's an 18th film. When videos came out in the early 80s, around the time of E.T., people got to see that as well, and people got exposed to Halloween as well. I remember in the early 80s, some friends, we decided to go trick-or-treating because we'd seen it in these films and that. No one knew what it was. You knock on the door of someone's house, say trick-or-treat, and they wouldn't have a clue what it, because it wasn't known in this country. They didn't have a clue what it was. But what's that? And it was considered almost to be demanding money with menaces.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when first time I went trick-or-treating, I was 10. So we're talking 1985. And I distinctly remember going along, dressed as in this witch's mask with, the usual sort of sheet over my head, with this mask on and my bag, knocking on some chap's door and saying trick or treat. And his response was, "What? Are you threatening me?" And I was like, when we said trick or treat again, and then he went, "Are you threatening me?" And he just kept asking over and over again. And he said, "What does this mean?" I always said, "Well, you give us a treat or we trick you." And he goes, "Right, you're threatening me." And he actually got like a baseball bat and chased us down the street, which for us was even more fun than actually receiving sweets. Most of the attraction of trick-or-treating wasn't the fact that we were going to get sweets, but the attraction was the adrenaline rush of being chased away by violent adults who thought we were threatening them. So that was my early experience. We didn't used to come back with many sweets at all. We used to come back with probably a handful of Murray mints or Fox's Glacier mints and something. But the thrill of it was causing as much grief as possible in the neighbourhood.
I think it's more accepted here now, though, isn't it? I think this generation now, because you go into supermarkets and they sell all the plastic Halloween outfits and all the tombstones. It's a whole aisle of it, and I think that everybody's aware of what it is now. They
are, yeah. There's a certain code as well nowadays, especially around where I live, and I think it's probably the same for everywhere else in the UK, that if you put a pumpkin outside your house, it means you're open to trick-or-treaters. And, we take the kids around, and we always go to houses that have got pumpkins, and, we don't have any issues at all.
No, and I think that people...
Is that your budgie in the background?
He's joining in the conversation. Yeah, he's explaining that he doesn't know what Halloween is. But
Excellent.
Here he is. He's joining into the conversation. Yeah,
wonderful.
But yeah, it's like, I think also because like in the 70s and 80s, I don't think that American culture was over here as strongly as it is now.
Definitely not.
I think that we had British TV programs, and they didn't really mention Halloween at all. There was nothing shown. And now people have Sky and things like this. They watch possibly more American television than they do British.
Yeah, definitely. I remember I wasn't allowed to watch Sesame Street as a kid. My mum wouldn't let me watch it because she said she doesn't want me being too influenced by American culture. Yeah, it's crazy, but that's what it was like in the 80s, I suppose.
Yeah, I remember watching that as a kid, but I did watch a few things, but we had things like Happy Days on, and my favourite, Different Strokes. But I feel that because of the language has changed here, people do mimic things they hear on the program. So people tend to watch more American culture these days than they did before. So it's become more predominant. So people are more aware of what Halloween is, I think.
Yeah.
Funniest thing happened to me during Halloween. I never went properly trick or treating. I was one failed attempt where people thought that we were just trying to mug them on their doorstep.
Yeah.
But I remember late in the 90s, there's a Halloween party that this bloke was having over in Windsor. It's his fancy dress. So me and my mate decided to go. You can walk to Windsor from where, and it's like a long road for Eton, East there.
Yeah.
And my mate wanted to go as Pinhead from Hellraiser.
Hellraiser, yeah.
So his dad worked in this. He had there's a putty in the garage. I think he's a builder or something like this. So my mate covered his face with this putty, and he put this like white sort of makeup stuff over it because he had some of these tubes like theatre, like theatre makeup stuff.
Yes.
So covered with white stuff and then stuck pins in it, which is very good. Yeah. And what I did is I got hold of an old apron, covered it in sort of red paint, so like blood.
Yeah.
I have a chamois leather, an old car chamois leather. I made a mask. And he had a chainsaw in his dad's shed. So I said, just take the chain off and we'll take it there. So we took the chain off. And I had this chainsaw, and we were carrying this chainsaw down the road. He was known as Pinhead. And the police pulled us over.
Yeah.
Excuse me, where are you two going? And because they didn't have any perception of Halloween either.
No.
They just thought we were two psychopaths out on a killing spree. So we had to sit in this police car and explain to them what Halloween was. For about 10 minutes, and why we were dressed and why I was carrying a massive chainsaw.
And I bet they just told you to go home.
Afterwards, they sort of said to themselves, fair enough, do you know what I mean? They sort of they generally got the gist of what was going on, and believed us, you know what I mean? But if we were real psychos, we could have gone out and done what we were doing. But even those days, the police weren't even really fully. They had heard of it, but they didn't even know what it was, So we had to explain to them what we were doing and where we were going. So that's the difference in the British and American Halloween, is that we weren't really aware of it until, I suppose, the 90s, really.
No,
properly.
I mean, I think I can't really speak from experience of how popular it was or when the popularity in America really started. But as far as I'm aware, it always has been popular because it was pretty much taken over, I believe, by like the Irish and the Scottish who went over to the States to find a new life over there. And it's a celebrated Gaelic holiday as well. So, or a day that they celebrate. And also, I think with America generally being more religious than the UK, and it also being a hijacked pagan holiday that the Christians have taken on, I think that's probably something to do with its popularity.
I feel, disarms it a bit, doesn't it?
Whereas in the UK, we have kind of forgotten our pagan roots, and we've also forgotten our sort of Christian roots as well. We're neither one or the other anymore. We're just kind of whatever, a bunch of skeptical non-believers, pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's underlying interest in the pagan side of things, I feel. Do you know what I mean? Because there's still a fascination with things like Stonehenge. So I think that in a sort of psyche of the country, underneath the surface, maybe in the subconscious, there is this connection to sort of pagan history there.
Yeah.
Because there's always been a fascination with myths and witchcraft, and it always seems to be kind of popular, doesn't it? In TV shows about that kind of thing. So although there's no overt sort of religion in this country as such, I do feel there's some sort of an interest in that, and that's why I feel that the sort of theatrical side of Halloween didn't really take off at first. The sort of dressing up in plastic suits and stuff like that. I think it was more maybe thought of as a serious thing. That's what from what I read as a child. In the sort of books I used to read. Yeah. And there were things like Colin Wilson, that kind of stuff. It was more like a serious day to contact spirits, where almost like a religious day, where you contacted your loved ones that have passed over into the other realm. And it's not a party time. It's a time for serious contemplation.
Almost like a day in the year where the veil between our world and the paranormal world is at its thinnest. So things are going to potentially happen and occur around that date. It wasn't really a day where you dress up and go out demanding sweets.
No.
You know, the whole pumpkin thing, you know, is obviously quite an interesting thing as well, because some people interpret it as you light a pumpkin to scare away evil spirits. Yet it can also be interpreted as lighting a pumpkin to invite spirits into the house of the departed, departed family. So it's almost like putting balloons up outside your house when it's a birthday and saying, we're having a birthday party here, why don't you come and celebrate it with us? So there's two schools of thought on the pumpkin, the old jack-o'-lantern thing as well. So, you know, those who are actually putting pumpkins out to scare spirits away could in fact actually be inviting them around for a bit of a party. So who knows?
I think the candles is an element of that, because like some of the books I used to read used to say that on the day, you know, on Halloween, which is, you know, All Hallows Eve or Samhain, that people used to use a candle to entice that they've concentrated on this candle and entice the spirits of the loved ones that departed.
Yeah, and
that candle was like a moth to a flame that would entice the spirit closer.
Yeah.
So it's almost like, a day of quiet contemplation, thinking about, loved ones that have passed over, rather than, I say, running around the streets with children screaming, asking for sweets with a plastic Dracula mask on.
I think the Halloween in the US, I miss the whole element of it going dark outside and, it's going cold, and preparing a pumpkin and maybe making some soup out of the pumpkin itself, and then putting the pumpkin out when it's dark and then going out trick-or-treating, or at least doing something outdoors where it's dark. There wasn't that at all. What we did on Halloween, we actually went to one of the big a shopping centre, a bit like Blue Water Shopping Centre.
Right.
And every shop had someone outside who was just giving sweets to the kids, and all the kids were inside this huge shopping complex, just going from shop to shop with a plastic pumpkin, getting it filled with sweets. And that was all it was about. Even though they were fancy dressed, there wasn't many scary fancy dress. They were basically all dressed as either Disney characters, so you had like lots of girls from Frozen. You even had some kids dressed as snowmen. The whole element of it just seemed to be quite sanitized, and the scary element had been kind of removed from it. So obviously, as a parent, I think it's a choice what you let your kids go trick-or-treating as. We asked our kids what they wanted to go as. One wanted to go as a Power Ranger, the other wanted to go as Thomas the Tank Engine. So what can you do? I couldn't say, but it's Halloween, you've got to go as a horror character. That's what they wanted to go as. And
exactly,
pretty much all the other kids who were out thought the same thing as well. So I didn't really see any monsters and skeletons and stuff. It was just characters. You might as well be in Disneyland just asking for sweets.
And talking about Disney, a lot of kids dressing up Star Wars characters, I noticed this year as well for Halloween.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's also to do with the culture. I mean, when you're a child, you identify with the characters you're familiar with. Like when we grew up, things like Dracula, Frankenstein and Wolfman, they were known to us because they were part of the culture. Kids knew who they were, but I think they don't have any relevance to kids today.
No, definitely not.
Whereas Disney and stuff does, I feel here, But I suppose it's different. In the UK, I suppose the idea of a strange adult giving sweets to children is pretty much frowned upon.
Well, you've got to be careful, haven't you, nowadays? It's I think a lot of parents would be a bit dubious about letting the kids roam the streets, knocking on strangers' doors, asking for sweets, which is why there's the pumpkin protocol, and also the parents generally stand at the bottom of the drive. Or you have a network of parents who are all in on it, and the kids just go from friend's house to friend's house. But nowadays, with the the media frenzy about paedophiles and everything, it's just probably the worst time of year. And also, if you are that way inclined, you're probably rubbing your hands, thinking, okay, tonight I'm going to get at least 20 kids knocking on my door asking for sweets.
Home delivery night for nonsense, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. So you have got to be really careful. It's so in that respect, it does have a horror element, but not in the way it was originally intended.
Definitely, yeah. But maybe we should have a campaign to bring back the horror side of it. Maybe some human sacrifices and
keep Halloween horrible.
Yeah, definitely. Keep Halloween nasty. Keep it vicious.
Yeah, keep Halloween horrible. I mean, I did one adult thing we did do in America is we went to Universal's Halloween Horror Nights, which, for anyone who's never done it before, all the studios at the back of Universal behind the rides, they actually convert into haunted houses. So you'll walk through a network of rooms with people jumping out at you. That's what it involves. That's that in its basic form. But they're all themed. So there was Dusk Till Dawn, Halloween, the new Dracula movie. What else was there? The Walking Dead.
Human Centipede?
No, Human Centipede. That would have made a good one. However, they were very formulaic. We went around seven of these houses. Oh, it was Alien versus Predator as well, which was the one that was slightly stood out for being different because they'd actually kitted it out like you're on board like the Nostromo, the ship. So you had actual... even though there weren't colonial marines on, that particular ship, you had like colonial marines there, and they were like ferrying you, rushing you through rooms, saying, "Quick, keep moving," and aliens would jump out the wall, and there was a predator in there skinning someone alive, hanging from the ceiling, and you were ducking down tunnels, and it was good. It was atmospheric. You had all the smoke, and it was loud. It was so loud. It was.
That reminds me. Did you ever go to Alien War, the Trocadero? In the 90s?
No, but I remember seeing it. Was it above Sega World or something?
That's right. Sega was there now. That was quite appalling, actually, Sega World. It was only about 3 machines and repeated for the whole thing. They were all racing games. But the Alien War was like, it was around the time Alien 3 came out. I remember, I think I bought a video of Alien 3 and I had this voucher saying, get one, buy one, get one free kind of thing. So we went there. And it's like the same sort of thing. It's set up like a ship with these Marines, but they were like guiding you like a tour party. Like, to get from one side of the ship to the other.
Okay.
And there was like the eggs there, do you know what I mean? And stuff like this alien would come around the corner and steam would come out of pipes as you were against to make you jump. But it's quite funny because there's some people in the group who are obviously actors.
Yeah.
And there's a bit where you go inside a lift. You're sitting in this like space lift, and the lights start flickering. And then the doors open. This alien comes in, jumps in, takes somebody out of the lift. And then it goes up, and the woman who's acting as a Marine says, "Does anybody know that person? Who were they? Do you know what I mean?" And this bloke thought it was really serious. He's Chinese. He's a tourist, I think. And he's almost crying. He said, "What's happened to her? She's going to die." And he thought it was real,
Yeah.
I mean, it was quite an intense experience. I mean, obviously you're aware they were acting and stuff like that, but it was done so well, But I'm surprised it didn't last long.
I think these things in like the haunted or the Halloween Horror Nights, I think for 90% of the public, they are intense experiences. However, depending on what you've been exposed to in your normal, day-to-day life, you just see it as, some poor sod who's getting paid a pittance to dress as a zombie and jump out at people every 5 minutes. That's even though I enjoyed the whole experience, I was too analytical of like watching how it was working and how it was happening. I think the only one that really grabbed my attention was the Dusk Till Dawn one, which was done like a lap dancing bar with vampires. So obviously there was a bit of a diversion there. But the way they work are very formulaic. You go from room to room, and the actor who's dressed as like the vampire or the zombie or whatever, they're actually working to an audio recording, which probably lasts about 30 seconds, and that 30 seconds is on a loop. So when you've got the vampire jumping out, it's not the actor making the hissing, spitting sound. It's actually a pre-recorded sound, so it's louder than it would normally be. So if you go into one of these rooms at the sort of the end of the loop, you're not going to stay in that room for 30 seconds. So you can go through some rooms and not see anything at all because the actor won't come out unless their cue is there.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
yeah,
I went into quite a lot of rooms and I saw like something slink behind the curtain, and I'd wait there for 20 seconds and nothing had happened, and there'd be someone else going, keep moving, and then you'd miss out whatever happened in that room. Right. And it must be hell for the actor because they're doing the same thing every 30 seconds for hours on end,
Wow.
I hope they get paid a lot of money because...
I hope so. And talking about, have you heard of that Zombie Mall in Reading? Zombie Mall, it's called.
No.
What it is in Reading, there's like an old shopping centre. It's a proper one with staircases, escalators in it, and shop fronts, and it closed down a number of years ago.
Okay.
And these blokes bought it over and made it into a zombie experience. So it's a bit like, is it Day of the Dead, the one in a shopping centre where they smash the windows? Yeah. And basically you go in, it's got like over 18s only, nervous disposition. They take a group of people in there. And basically, you walk through this shopping centre, and it's all silent and eerie. And suddenly they start smashing through windows and jumping at you, and you've got to survive this onslaught of zombies. And it's supposed to be quite intense. Yeah. But these people, they're making. There's a team of people that are set up themselves. They're not paying actors a pittance here. I think it's a group of people themselves that invested the money in getting this place and doing it. But I tried to get on it, but it's booked up solid like for years in advance. It's very popular.
I think. I mean, I think these ones in America, bearing in mind that I think each ticket to get in was $50. not into each house, but to get into, the whole of the Universal, to experience all of the houses. Sure. There was $50, and it was busier than it was in the daytime. So if you can imagine Alton Towers, how busy that is on a weekend, it was busier than that. And for example, for The Walking Dead, the queue was 2.5 hours long. That's how many people. Luckily enough, we got fast tracked because we was only there, for a small amount of time. So we wanted to see it all. So we fast tracked everything. But some poor sucker was, in a queue for like 2.5 to 3 hours, just to walk through a few rooms where people dressed as zombies jump out at you, and then to walk out the other side. And
it's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, I think someone told me as well that the horror house industry in America, because it's not just the big theme parks that do it, people do their own ones as well. Like you've given the example of the mall in Reading. They do their own, and it's worth $1 billion. So
wow.
And if you think about the amount of time and money and stuff that had gone into these individual houses, was a hell of a lot of money. But I would have thought that they'd recoup all that on the first night of opening.
It's brilliant though, isn't it? Yeah, a lot of money's gone into that,
Yeah, I think it's impressive in that respect. However, in terms of getting a real scare, it's the old horror film, the blatant graphic horror versus psychological horror. What's scariest? That's using the blatant graphical horror as the catalyst for the fear, where you and I would be more into the psychological aspect.
Yeah, definitely, 100%, yeah. And those things are more, I see them as kind of fun more than anything else,
Yeah.
Like the alien thing. The adrenaline was pumping on that alien war thing I went on, but I wasn't scared. I wouldn't have nightmares or think about it. It's just a fun experience. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's like going on a thrill ride. It's just like a ride, really. But I did enjoy it. But that zombie mold does look quite intense, because I think they grab. I mean, he's a warning. I think they grab hold of you and stuff. It looks really mad. I've seen the clips of it and stuff like that.
There must be something on YouTube regarding.
There's like a trailer on there, and there's like people talking about it on there. And I think it's a news item, because it's on the local news around here about how they've set it up. And the people who interviewed, and they show clips of it. Yeah. But I think there's like a little feature about it, and they show. I don't think they show the full experience, but there's a local news item as well. They're interviewing the people behind it. So it's it looks really well done, but it's very popular.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've tried to go on. It's booked for ages, but it does look quite intense. And I think there's nothing creepier than an abandoned building that used to have life in it. Like an old shopping centre where people used to go and buy stuff. It's buzzing at one point, and it's just derelict and empty and bleak.
I think that's why urban exploring is quite popular, isn't it?
Yeah, I used to be into that years ago. And then going in an old asylum, or getting into an old abandoned hospital, that kind of place. It's very creepy, and there's no one about, and that something happened there. Old fairgrounds are creepy as well.
Yeah, you've got the adrenaline of knowing you shouldn't be there as well. I think
definitely
that's the main thing. I think if you could go back to the Halloween Horror Nights thing, if you obviously you didn't have it at a theme park and everything, but if you marketed like an experience where, say, there was an old fairground or an old pier that was a disused pier that was once a fairground, but you had an agreement with the people who owned it that you were going to do an event there. However, the people who book it don't know that. They just think that you're doing an urban exploration experience. So when they turn up and you break in, they actually think for real you are breaking in.
That would be good, yeah.
You're going to have that element of adrenaline straight away. You can make even the slightest thing happen then, because you can have the psychological aspect of they think they could actually get arrested for this, but they've paid to do it, so they're going to do it anyway. I think that would work, and I think there's definitely some mileage in that. But,
definitely. Some of these buildings are hard, because I've tried to sort of get old asylums to do seances and things like that in there, but also there's a health and safety aspect, because if it's a decaying building or not been repaired or anything like this, it's not in use. You get all, if you speak to the authorities about it, you get all the health and safety. You can't take people in there and blah 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 and this kind of thing. I suppose you could say that people enter at their own risk. You know what I mean? But you don't want anyone to hurt themselves or walk through, go crashing through a floorboard or something like this. But getting the permission is kind of difficult with those places. I've tried before.
You'd have to find something or somewhere via someone who's already in on the scene who knows about it. But then you do have the health and safety issues, and even if someone was to like rip their clothes, or if you was going to climb under a barbed wire fence and they scratched their back and in the end they found out it was all fake, you open yourself up for all sorts of legal shenanigans.
It's dangerous. Yeah, I mean, I say, it's kind of you have to be very careful of these things, and also owns it and all that kind of stuff. Some they're very funny about these things. It would be nice to get some of these old abandoned buildings and be able to get into them or to have events there, but sadly, it's a bit of an issue with people.
So that was Halloween, and it was good anyway. And I think we're going back next year. So next year I'll be able to report back, and hopefully I might see a different side of it. It was a bit more favourable because I did miss Halloween in the UK, which I could kind of have, which is why I'm kind of celebrating Halloween now. So. Yeah.
Try Salem at Halloween. Salem next year at Halloween. I've heard
it's manic. I went to Salem in February, and they said the worst time to come is Halloween. It's like
would be good.
It'd just be like it's so busy. Supposedly, I think there's probably an atmosphere there though.
Definitely.
I know Ronnie's been Ronnie Shacknight, and I think when we interview him, we'll actually ask him what he thought of Halloween in Salem. It'd be interesting to find out.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, to me, somewhere like that of a history. Do you know what I mean? It's got that to it. There's something sinister about it.
Yeah,
it's a perfect place. I think it would be great to go Halloween.
Salem is a great place. You've got that. It's still got the English feel, and it's got the seasons as well. When we went in February, it was completely out of season. You had that typical by the seaside, and nothing's open, and everything's quiet, and there's no one in the streets, and it felt eerie. You really felt like you shouldn't be there. And I think I mentioned this in the last episode that, when it got dark, you felt like you had to get indoors quickly for some unknown reason. And it had that element to it. Probably because it was an unknown town. So you don't know, who comes out at night in Salem. But it seemed perfectly safe. But it still had that kind of H.P. Lovecraft, the sun's gone down, I'm going to have to get my arse indoors quickly type feel to it.
Excellent. That's the sort of place you want, that sort of feel, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just an illusion.
Right, so as you can tell from that soundbite, this is the section where we're going to look at something related to magic. What's this particular thing we've got today, Freddie?
We've both got something. I've got a very good book here. It's the Geek Magician's Cookbook by Matt Parrott. Parrott. It's the first book he's written, but it's really good. I mean, what it's about, it's basically geek magic, like doing sort of stunts and sort of like, chewing broken glass. And no one's really written a good book about this before.
No, I think it's quite a popular area of magic. I think most people who dabble in magic, be it, just like bog standard, card magic or whatever, everyone likes to have something in their performance that makes people go, ooh, or, gets a strong reaction. And I think you have to dip into the geek magic genre to get those things in general.
Definitely, and there's an element of danger to it as well, which I feel is something that people do like. And I think a lot of the times, on the carnival circuit, particularly in America, the circus acts, they did a lot of stuff like that. But they didn't tend to write about it. Like, if a magician comes up with an idea, he'll sell it to the world. He'll bring out a DVD book, and it's just it's available freely. Whereas this has almost been kept under sort of behind closed doors, so to speak. Not many people have really brought anything out explaining this or how to do it properly.
What sort of things has it got in it? Does it?
Well, it's got practically everything you can ask for. I mean, it's got human blockage, like having a nail up your nose. That's in it, and he explains it really well. It's got illustrations in there, and it's almost like an A to Z of geek magic. It's got walking on broken glass, ladder of swords, eating glass, walking on hot coals, bed of nails, biting through a nail, getting milk from your eye. It's all in here. And it's swallowing razor blades, stopping your pulse. The pulse stopping one's actually interesting because I get a mention in there. There's a thing I used once where I did a resurrection, where I slashed my wrist with a cutthroat razor, bled to death, and came back alive on stage during an Easter show, which is sacrilege, or it could be a tribute, whichever way you see it. But Matt mentions that in it, and I'm grateful for mentioning that as well. But
Happy Implausible Resurrection Festival. That's what I think. Bill Bailey. That's what he calls Easter, the Implausible Resurrection Festival. So.
Exactly. Yeah. No one's seen. I gave people resurrection stage, and I'm pleased with that because no one's ever had that before. Next I'm going to walk on water or do something or grow a beard. I don't know. But there's a needle through arms on it, eating glass, swallowing balloons, breaking a board in two, breaking multiple boards. It's all in there. Psychic surgeries in it, staple gun roulette, spike roulette.
It sounds right up our street. I think in terms of when I was getting into magic many years ago now, I only really got into it so I could get a reaction out of people. And I think the one that I got the best reaction from is needle through arm, and I did that at a family Halloween party, and I, did the whole thing, pressed the bulb too hard, and the blood shot up the kitchen wall. It was hectic, and it got the right reaction. People were shocked, and people didn't have a clue how you did it.
Yeah, and the stuff in here. It's really good. It's not like silly card things and that sort of stuff. It's not like the usual stuff. This is stuff that's really good. I mean, the things in Matt's book, he explains it really well, and he covers practically every area of it, and the illustrations are good. Like I said before, it's a good book. Some of these things, like someone years ago could learn one thing from this, go on something like New Faces in the 70s and win it, and be known for that one thing. Like Scott bending an iron bar, you'd get someone doing that on some talent show years ago, and that would be their whole act.
I think you could do it nowadays. If you went on Britain's Got Talent and did blockhead, needle through arm, and something else, you'd get the panel of brain dead idiots who you've got judging it. They'd be puking into buckets because they've just never been exposed to that type of thing. So
this to me, this is the only book that I know of. I've never come across such a comprehensive book like this that lists all this kind of stuff. It's almost like an encyclopedia of geek magic, and it's 18 plus only, obviously, because of some of the material in it. But it's the first book I've come across. I have a fascination with like the carnivals, freak shows, that kind of stuff, like these weird sort of like setups that go from town to town years ago with, Siamese twins and stuff like that in it, and people hammering nails at their noses. There's something really Victorian and quite really sort of magical about it, I think, in a way, because these people seem otherworldly.
People like to be shocked. I think that's what it is, and
they do.
You're guaranteed a shock if you go along to one of those, or if you went along to one of those things. You were guaranteed to see something you don't see every day.
Definitely, and seeing something you've never seen before is always interesting for people, I think, because you can't believe what you're seeing.
Yeah.
And I think, card tricks and stuff do have their place. Children's parties, but they do have their place. But I feel that no one sort of thinks, "Wow, that's so much." But things like this, people don't forget it, because it's almost like these holy men that in India used to do that sort of stuff like that. It's those kind of things.
Yeah.
They're in this book, and it's an excellent book. Anybody who wants to sort of get into that area of things, or to start to investigate it, or to learn about it, I do recommend it 100%.
Is it an e-book, or is it a physical in print?
The one I've got is a physical book, and I think you can buy it from places like Magic Box and places like that to sell it. I know they have done in the past, and I think, I'm not sure if Matt has an ebook of it or not. He might well do, but I've got the hardback copy here, and it is a brilliant book, but it's actually a physical book, but it's well written.
So if listeners want to look for it on Google, what do they have to type in? It's called Geek Magic.
The Geek Magician's Cookbook by Matt Parrott.
Okay, cool.
I think the good thing about it is he researches he tells you a little bit about the history of each stunt as well. We call it a stunt. So it is really involved, and it's really detailed. Yeah. But yes, excellent.
Brilliant. I have to look at that. I know. I've always loved things like needle through arm and blockhead. I try to learn blockhead, but it does take a bit of time to do it. Like any decent thing in magic, you've got to practice it. But it's just something just didn't work for me with that. I just couldn't. The nail only went in about an inch, and then that was it. I couldn't get it in any further. So, have you ever tried that one?
No, I've not done it much. I've never performed anything like this myself. A few things I've done, but I've never done that before. I don't think I had a desire to, but I do think it's a great thing to do. But in this book, it actually does explain properly how to do it.
Yeah.
It's quite detailed, So if I were going to attempt this, I would study this.
This would be your first stop in order to learn it and do it properly. Yeah,
because it's studied. He's obviously sort of like he's obviously very good at doing it, or he's an expert at doing it, and he's explained it in clarity. It's detailed. So that's where I would actually start. That would be my starting point for it. Yeah,
and Simon Drake as well. He's got something that was released just before Halloween, which is along the Geek Magic lines. It's called Papercut, which you can actually get on. You can either get it through Simon Drake's House of Magic website, or you can go through Lebanon Circle and just look at the Simon Drake section there. But it's just called Papercut, and it's just a really small shock factor effect. It's once you've performed it, it's a 10-second shocker, and you literally just tell someone, you can't. If people know you're into magic, you always get people saying, "Oh, hey Freddie, go on, do us a magic trick or something down the pub," and he kind of came up with this one to put people off asking him. So what he usually says is, I can't really do any tricks today. I've got got a real nasty cut on my finger, like a paper cut. And they say, oh yeah, where? And you show them, and it literally, when you show them, it looks like your whole knuckle has been gashed open. So to the point where the bone's broken. And it's just literally if you go on the website and look at the video, it's just a really simple, you just palm the gimmick and you put it on your hand and you show it the person. But I think it's because they're not expecting to see that. When you say paper cut, when you see a paper cut, obviously it's like the smallest cut in the world. However, this is the complete opposite. It's almost to the point where it looks like your fingers hanging off.
Fantastic.
I think with a bit of stage blood and that might enhance it a bit, but it's just a real quick sort of in-your-face bit of geek magic that might get people off the case. When people will probably say, "Oh, have a look at this guy's finger and stuff," and then you're probably attracting more people.
Or drag it to A&E.
yeah. Cool. Okay, so that's the review section. So well, if you've got anything you'd like us to review, you can either just drop us an email on the or drop us a message on the Mystic Menagerie page. And if it's an ebook, send us a copy through and we'll gladly have a look at it for you and maybe get it on the next show.
Paranormal Corner.
All right, Paranormal Corner, what we're going to do is look at really unusual things or strange things to do with the paranormal or unexplained things here. And we found a video recently, the case of Elisa Lam. Yeah. This is really weird, isn't it, Dan? This is really odd.
It is. It's a very, very spooky one. I found it on one of these forums, and it was something to do with like 5 YouTube videos that will make your blood run cold. It was like one of those things, and like you click on it and you have a look. The other 4 weren't that great, but this one really grabbed my attention because I'd never heard of it. I don't know if it's a regional thing because it was an American event. But I didn't have a clue about it. And then when I watched it, it is genuinely eerie. And I don't know if you want to run into the background of what it actually covers, but it's about a girl called Elisa Lam.
Yeah, and she was from Canada. She was like a student, and she was staying. Where was it? It's called the Cecil Hotel, or Cecil, as they say.
Yeah, Cecil in America, but where we call it Cecil Hotel.
Cecil, yeah, and it's weird because in this hotel you see her as footage from the lift, isn't there? She's in the side of the lift and she's pressing all the buttons of the lift, and then she's looking into the corridor. The door's open. I think she's on the 14th floor, but she's actually staying on the 4th floor, if I remember rightly. So she's pressing all these buttons, but then she's looking into the corridor and talking to something that's not there and waving her arms about.
Yeah, it's very odd. It's in Los Angeles, that's right. So the Cecil Hotel. But if you watch this video, it's the camera in the lift, the security camera, and you see Elisa get into the lift, but the door. She's pressing the buttons frantically, and the doors just don't close. And then she kind of gets out the lift, and
she's talking to somebody, isn't she?
Yeah, she's talking to someone actually in the lift and just outside of the lift. It's almost as if someone's just slightly out of shot of the doorway that she's talking to, but yeah, there's nothing there, and it's very unusual.
Yeah, and then the doors close on their own accord, and the lift obviously goes up to where, or down to where it was going. And shortly after that, she was found dead in a water tank on top of the building, naked.
Yeah, and she'd been in there for 2 weeks.
Yeah, and the thing is that it's alarmed up there. To get up the top of that, you have to get through an alarm system. So, you need to be someone who works there or a security guard or something to get in there. But these water tanks, the top of it, it's quite heavy. And she's quite a young sort of, I wouldn't say frail, but she's of a sort of a small build.
She's Oriental, isn't she? Isn't she?
Yeah, that's right, yeah. And to actually lift up the top of this water tank, to climb inside it and then put the lid back on it, because it was sealed, the lid was back on again. It wasn't as if she'd jumped in there and left the lid off.
Yeah.
You assume if you're going to jump into something and drown, you wouldn't bother putting the lid back on after you.
No, I think the door to the roof was locked. The water tanks are alarmed, and basically when the firefighters when they found the body, they had to cut a hole in the tank to get her out. So no one was even sure how she got in there in the first place.
Yeah, and it's weird. And the thing is, when they found her, her clothes weren't anywhere to be found either. No. They weren't nearby, or they weren't in a room or in a hotel. They couldn't find them, and that was really weird. And how it was discovered wasn't there black water coming out of the taps in the hotel?
Yeah, because obviously she'd been like turning into a kind of porridge in this tank in the Los Angeles heat on this roof, and all the people in the hotel, obviously getting little bits of her coming through the taps.
water come out black, and which reminds me of a great song called "Let's Make the Water Turn Black" by Frank Zappa, which has got an equally weird story attached to it, but it's not as spooky. But yeah, and the thing is about it is that hotel. A lot of serial killers stayed there in the past. There's been a lot of events where there's been suicides. Yeah, there's been murders.
It's got a very dodgy reputation, to say the least.
Richard Ramirez, a night stalker, he lived there, didn't he, whilst he was committing his murders?
Yeah, he'd actually dump his bloody clothes in their bins in the alleyway and then take the back door, the employees' entrance into the Cecil Hotel and get back to his room that way, which is... There's
lots of suicides there. Once someone would jump from a window and landed on the canvas, them canopy things at the front as well. There's lots of suicides and things like that happen there. So it's got quite a spooky or sinister reputation.
It has. And I think one of the things that made it very eerie for me is the way the way Elisa Lam moves when she's in the lift, because there's some parts of it that look like she's actually almost being played in reverse. The way her arms move, generally like some sort of like, say in like Marilyn Manson videos where they edit it so they kind of speed people up and slow them down and their arms bend in really strange...
Benny Hill.
Yeah, sort of in strange positions. A bit like, say, like Silent Hill, that type of horror film. She's got that kind of movement, but naturally. It's not, there's no camera tricks or anything. She's naturally moving in that strange manner, whilst at the same time trying to avoid or talk to someone. It was almost like I think at one point she actually hides as well, doesn't she?
She does, yeah, she hides. It's almost like she's pleading with someone or shouting at someone, waving her arms, then she hides. But you can't see anyone there. There's definitely no one in the lift, but in the corridor you can't see anybody, you know. The weird thing, there's quite a few weird theories about this. Some of them are very sort of like logical, but nothing really adds up. Obviously there's the sort of ones where the paranormal theories where it's a ghost. Either the hotel is a malevolent presence and it causes people to do things like this.
Like The Shining.
Like The Shining, that kind of thing. And also they're saying that the ghost of Richard Ramirez might be around killing people, that kind of thing. There's all these sort of theories. But the one that's strange because someone's posted on a link to a blog, which is meant to be her actual blog.
Yeah.
And mentioning her day-to-day things and what she's doing and, but she sort of mentions there about being depressed and suffering from some sort of depression or bipolar or this kind of thing.
Right.
And she's quite graphic about it and quite down about things. But also mentions that a bloke has been following her around as well. So the two theories are either this bloke murdered, he was someone maybe worked there or something like this, or had access to the security system and took her on top of there and killed her.
Yeah.
For what reason, don't know. And the other thing was saying that because she's bipolar, she heard voices to tell her to get in the water tank and do this. And that's what she was talking to. She was hallucinating audio and visual hallucinations. So that's some of the theories that come up, but it still doesn't really explain things. And I don't think the report really gave any, the coroner's report, any solid reason as to why this happened. There's a lot of unanswered questions about this, isn't there?
It is odd. I mean, obviously she was a tourist as well, and when you stay in a hotel, you don't generally know how to get onto the roof and get into one of the water tanks. It takes a bit of inside knowledge to do that type of thing. Which I think is odd. Another really strange coincidence as well that's being battered about on the internet is that there was a deadly outbreak of I always struggle to say this, tuberculosis. There you go. I probably said it. You say it. How do you say it? It's
tuberculosis.
Just
say TB. Yes.
There we go. That's it. I can say plenty of things, but I just cannot seem to spit that one out for some reason. Anyway, a deadly outbreak of TB occurred in a place called Skid Row, which is very close to the Cecil Hotel. And the test kit that they used to test for TB was called Lam Elisa.
That's another weird. And there's another one which it's a far-fetched sort of coincidence, but they're on the video, the CCTV video. There's actually almost like a black cloud or black sort of faint smog across the screen.
Okay.
And if you look at it, it's almost like, I don't know where it's to do. Sometimes when you look at these like webcam videos, they sort of pixelate a little bit. I don't know it's to do with that, but there's a bloke on there who's actually got a picture of Richard Ramirez, the night stalker who lives at the hotel, and transposed it over this black sort of mark, and it fits his face.
Yeah, strange.
And if you look at the video, it does actually fit him. I mean, obviously, maybe you want it to look like that. I don't know, but it does seem to fit in. So that's quite strange as well. But there's too many strange coincidences, too many weird things about this. Obviously, you get some really wild Illuminati type theories across the internet raging about it, but there's definitely something odd about this video.
Yeah, I wonder what the kind of follow-up investigation has been like to it, and if it's, as far as I'm aware, once it hit the media, there wasn't really any follow-up investigations about it. It's it's like, I wouldn't say it's a closed case, but there's so many unanswered questions, and I don't think they've made, if they have answered any of those questions, they've not made it public knowledge.
It's quite dismissed, you know. And the strange thing about it is, you think, like, in these cases, usually you have like a family that's pushing for some investigation or pushing for something. But I've looked and Googled things, you know. I've not found any knowledge of anybody really trying to push for this to be resolved or to be investigated properly.
It's very creepy. Yeah. So if listeners want to go and have a look at that, if you just go onto YouTube and type in Elisa Lam, which is Elisa, and then her surname is Lam, Lam, you'll find numerous videos of it. But if you just watch the initial the CCTV footage from the lift, just by watching it, you can tell straight away that there's something quite strange happening there that can't be explained, because there is nothing else there apart from her.
Definitely. I'd like to know what people think of this, and maybe on the page, you know, on the Facebook page, Mr. Menagerie page, some of your ideas of what you think's going on here, or any strange things you might notice. So if you want to discuss that, you know, get talking about it, because it's a very, very weird video. Yeah.
Also, I know we have quite a few listeners from the LA area, Los Angeles area in the States. So, you know, if you have heard of any follow-ups or any local news covering it that hasn't made it to the, you know, this side of the pond, then you know, drop us a line and let us know, and we'll follow it up in the next episode. But it's definitely the one kind of, I would say, it's not, you know, it's not a straight paranormal event, it's a mystery event, but it's got so many paranormal connotations to it that it's definitely one of the standout events for this year anyway.
It's definitely got a strange vibe.
Yeah, so check that out. It's the mysterious case of Elisa Lam.
Crossover children, all are welcome, go into the light.
Right, welcome back, and this is a section of the show where we're going to look at a bizarre piece of music, either something that, you know, you can listen to just for your own listening pleasure, or something that you might be able to incorporate into a performance, or you know, some sort of media project you're working on. But this one is probably one that you're going to want to listen to in a very dark room with the headphones on, with the lights out. And it's a long time since I've heard it. I had it on like an old goth compilation album from like back in the 80s. But you want to tell us about it, Freddie?
Yeah, because some music is very creepy. You know, some music is very. I mean, as a kid, there's certain things I found creepy which I don't find creepy now. But this still remains creepy. It's a song called "Hamburger Lady" by Throbbing Gristle.
Yeah.
And for those who have not heard of Throbbing Gristle, they were around in the 70s, late 70s. They were like an industrial band, the first band I think really to provide that kind of music.
Yeah, like the first Skinny Puppy type thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite commercialised. It's become a genre of its own now, and it's almost like got its own demographic. But this, when they come out, there was no real demographic for it. It's just music from, you don't know where it to come from, you know, because around that time, I suppose late 70s, they had punk and things like this, you know, and ABBA. But this band came out, and there's something more sinister about them than other bands, you know. With a lot of punk bands, there was like a fake aggression and it was a pose, but they seemed quite genuine and sincere in the evil message they sent across. And some of their music's very hard going, you know. It takes a lot to listen to, you know.
Shall I have a quick excerpt from it? Shall I have a quick listen to a little bit of it? Well, obviously we won't play too much for copyright reasons, but we'll give the listeners just a bit of a taste of Throbbing Gristle, Hamburger Lady.
Her ears burned, her nose, her eyelashes, her fingers are burned, she can't hold anything, and the medical advances, there's no end in sight.
That's what it sounds like, you know. And the thing is, it is a creepy piece of music, because it's not really music as such. It's like weird noises.
It's like it's almost like something's being read out, but to the point it's so sort of heavily, you know, distorted and affected. You can grasp certain elements of it. And I think this is why it works if you listen to it with headphones on in a dark room, because your brain will eventually attune to that voice and start to take elements of it out and understand what the hell's going on.
Well, it's very hard to understand what's going on, but the thing is I looked into that, and it's creepy when you listen to it. When you find out what the song is about, it's even creepier.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? Because the actual lyrics are reading out a letter written by a doctor. He's writing about the patients in his hospital, you know, the different patients they looked after in the hospital. And I'm not sure where the hospital, which one it was. It's in America somewhere. But it's a letter, and he's describing a woman she's a burns victim in a hospital, and she had 3rd-degree burns, and it covered the whole top half of her body.
Okay.
The bottom half of the body was completely untouched, but apparently her skin and her ears have been burnt off, her nose have been burnt off. She looked like hamburger meat, basically, a big pile of hamburger meat sitting there, and that's why she's called the Hamburger Lady. But apparently, I mean, they're also keeping her alive. Their job is to keep people alive. They can't let people die. But she was in consistent pain, apparently, and she can only sleep for 3 minutes at a time. The lyrics, I'm reading the letter out this doctor wrote, and I'll read. I've got them here, actually.
Okay,
This is actually the lyrics. It says, by far the worst is the Hamburger Lady, and because of shortage right now of qualified technicians, i.e. technicians who can work with her and keep their last meal down. Screw loose Luritzen, that's obviously a doctor, and I have been alternating nights with her, unrelievedly. If you put a 250-pound meatloaf in the oven and then burned it, and then followed that by propping it up on a potty chair to greet you at 11 p.m. each night, you have some description of these past 2 weeks, which is to say the worst I've seen since Vietnam napalms. When somebody tells you there is a level of pain beyond which the human mind cannot retain consciousness, please tell them to write to me. In point of fact, this lady has not slept more than 3 to 5 minutes at a stretch since she came in to us. That was over 2 weeks ago, and thanks to medical advances, there's no end in sight. From the waist up, everything is burned off, ears, nose, etc. Lower half is untouched, and that, I guess, is what keeps her alive. I took one guy in to help me change tubes, and he did all right. That is all right until he came out. Then he spotted one of the burn nurses, pleasant smiling zombies, eating a can of chili mac at the desk, and that did it. He flashed on the carpet. It's insane. That's what it is. Yeah. And that's from a letter. So no one really knows the name of the Hamburger Lady, or do you know what I mean? It's just from a letter. She's obviously do you know what I mean? And not a known person, just a person who was a very bad burns victim. But there's no mention of her name or who she is. So it's very hard to find out what happened to her. And
I think we can take it for granted that she's not knocking about now, anyway.
Yeah, definitely not. Yeah, unless she's still there, being propped alive by tubes, you know. But that's what the song's about, you know. And when I listen to the music, you hear these like siren sounds, and it's almost like the song is the Hamburger Lady's point of view. Do you know what I mean? You hear this weird sort of wave of sort of. Yeah, it's almost soothing but disturbing, and that's kind of like the machines around her. You know,
it's like listening through melted ears.
Yeah, that's what it's like. And then you hear these sirens in it, which are kind of like maybe the ambulances outside the hospital, and then this disembodied voice, which you get the odd word, basically saying what I've just read out there. Yeah. Obviously, her overhearing the doctor talking about her, so it's almost like from her perspective. But it's one of the most sinister pieces of music I've ever heard in my life.
It is. It's definitely strange, because I always remember it on this goth album, and it had, you know, it had bands like Specimen, Alien, Sex Fiend, and all that, and then there was Throbbing, Gristle, Hamburger Lady, and it always got to that track, and I was just like, I'd feel like, what the hell is this? You know, it's just like there's no real melody, there's no melody to it, and it's just like really screwed up spoken word. And you know, I think I remember sort of doing my art homework listening to it, and it definitely gave me the heebie-jeebies.
Definitely, it just doesn't fit in. I mean, when you have other sort of like, say, a goth compilation, most of them have like some sort of vantage point of rock behind it. Do you know what I mean? There's drums, guitar, you know, although it's its own style, its own unique genre, there's still that sort of safety of it being in the rock idiom, you know. So you know where it's coming from. But where this is coming from, it's just completely another planet, you know. It's a completely different way of thinking, and whatever compilation you put them in, they will not fit in with the rest of the music around it. No. Throbbing Gristle stand out. The only way to Throbbing Gristle is an album of them, because they're out of place wherever they go, you know. This is the only band I've ever heard that are that. I mean, you get bands trying to do that sort of thing now, but I don't think anyone's mastered that sort of sinister industrial sound as much as they have.
No. And also being genuinely odd people themselves, I think that helps.
Definitely, yeah. And they're all quite strange people, particularly Genesis Purich. You know, he's definitely a unique character, to say the least. You know, and but this is it's a wonderful. I mean, to me, it's a wonderful piece of music, because you know, to evoke an emotion of fear and a horrible, uneasy feeling like that is not an easy thing to do.
No.
You know, and I know a lot of people try it, and you know, they try to make something sinister, but it's still got that element of being rock music or something you'd hear on the radio. But this isn't. This is something different altogether. So if anyone hasn't heard this before, you know, like Dan said, get some headphones, dark room, no one else around, maybe 2 a.m, listen to this.
Yeah, and it's on YouTube as well, isn't it? You can go on and listen to it. And I think one of the pictures on YouTube, because obviously there's no video to it, there is a picture of it's just a photoshopped picture of a melted woman, I think. So yeah. I mean, some people might listen to what you've just said and think, well, that's impossible. No one can have that degree of an injury and survive. But I think I remember telling you, I remember back from my forensics days, I'd seen a chap who was burnt completely. He was like the mirror opposite of Hamburger Lady. He was burnt from the waist down completely, from his hips and his legs were just like crisped. You know, it was basically
awful,
burnt flesh on bone. Even though his legs were completely burnt away to the point where I think they'd just crumbled. They were that burnt. There was the old candle effect where the body fat was acting as a wick, and he had like the blue flame burning over the bottom half of his body. He wasn't like completely enveloped in flame like you'd expect someone to be. It was just a slow burn of the body fats causing this, like if you put lighter fluid on a table and light it, you get that the alcohol burning off. Well, his legs were like that, and they were burning constantly, but he was still physically alive. And it was horrible.
You can't even imagine the pain, can you? You can't even imagine the pain that they're going through.
No, and it's very strange, and it's almost like his whole body had been cauterized from the waist down. Because normally from a burn, you'd lose blood through plasma from the blistering. But I think if you burn it to that degree, then obviously there's no blood or plasma being pumped anywhere. It still stays in your body, so which might go into maintaining your life, I suppose.
It's about alive, and it's not really alive. It's just existing, I suppose, but it's still just about alive. I mean, the Hamburger Lady there's not much. I mean, if people Google Hamburger Lady or Hamburger Lady true story or real story, you basically find what I've said to you there. I mean, they mention the name of the bloke who wrote the letter and stuff like this. And it is, it's something that is in a letter this chap wrote, and it's, to me, seems 100% genuine. From what people are saying, but there's not a great deal of info about it.
Yeah,
but if you Google it, that's what you'll find. You'll find that, and of course, you'll find the song as well. But it's definitely. I mean, that is possible. That is possible, like you say. But it'd be interesting if anyone ever researched this or found out what happened to her or who she was.
Yeah, perfect song for Halloween, anyway.
Definitely.
Yeah, and ones with for people with a strong stomach.
Definitely, yeah. And particularly now they know what it's about, because sometimes you can hear a song and you think, oh, that's a jolly song, or sometimes you think that's quite a creepy song. When you find out what some songs are actually about, like some songs are quite rude, like Chain Reaction by Diana Ross and things like that. But you don't realise what the lyrics are about afterwards. But Hamburger Lady, you will not work out what is being said because it's so distorted and so distant, the voice, but the odd word comes through.
Yeah,
and it's almost like you're in a coma yourself, and these odd words are coming through, and you're half awake. It's that kind of weird feeling listening to it. But those are the lyrics to it, and he's basically reading out this letter. So, now you know what it's about. Go and listen to that song at 2 a.m. With headphones on, in the dark, no one else there, and sweet dreams.
Who are you? Beyond the door, a terrifying look into demonic possession.
George, you can help me, George. Take me away from here. Mommy!
Beyond the door, step inside if you dare.
Yeah, now let's talk about some weird films that you may not have seen. I mean, last week we talked about some things that you hopefully checked out, and those were like dramas acted out. This is a real film called Mondo Carn. It's from 1962. Mondo Carn means a dog's world. It's an Italian film, but it's in English. It's got its voices dubbed over, so people that are subtitle phobic can still sort of jump in and watch it. But it's a documentary where these two Italian directors, which is Gaetano Jacopetti and Franco Prosperi, they went around the world and just filmed really strange rituals and strange things in different countries. Some of them are humorous and light-hearted. Some of them are quite gruesome.
Yeah, I know when you mentioned it to me, I thought I'll go and check some of it out. And it's like a cross between a National Geographic type thing, interspliced with some pretty horrific scenes.
Oh, definitely. And a lot of times these things hadn't been. I mean, we see stuff on the telly and YouTube and all this now. So we used to see some weird things and seeing strange stuff. You always people sharing videos every day on YouTube. This is the equivalent of someone sharing in videos. Do you know what I mean? These weird things that you see on YouTube. But no one has seen this stuff at the time. No one had really seen it. And I think it was banned in the UK or was edited in the UK because it wasn't the scenes of humans being hurt in it. It was the animal cruelty that Britain objected to. So they took some of that out. And the ironic thing, one of the songs in it is a song called More, which is like a nice piece of music. And I think there's a vocal version. I can't remember by who it is, one of the crooners, Okay. And that one, I think, was nominated for an Oscar. It did win it, actually, for Best Song. from the film, but everyone's forgotten the film. And it starts out these dogs barking at a pound, and that kind of thing. And there's a warning at the start, and then it's quite fun because it goes it shows this town where everybody in Italy in this town is a descendant of Rudolph Valentino.
Okay.
And they all look like him. So that's quite fun, And then the next thing it shows this bloke, there's a thing called manhunting in New Guinea, where this chap's running, he has a shirt torn off by a tribe of women who want to sort of claim him as their mate. So he climbs up a tree, it's quite comical, it's very Benny Hill.
Yeah.
And then it cuts to a really strange, like a pet cemetery, people mourning over their pets, it's quite normal so far. But then it gets really, really bizarre. It goes to Taiwan, showing dogs being skinned alive for their meat. And it shows, then geese being, forced to foie gras and that kind of stuff. And then it shows like a nuclear contaminant at a beach. It's like it's a nuclear power station, and it says fishermen that have been fishing for sharks, their legs bitten off, and there's like sewn up stumps. Right. So they're still fishing for sharks, and it gets more and more weirder. And then there's like a weird sort of place in Italy, in this island Tiberia, I think it's called, in Italy, where people guard the bones of their ancestors in an underground tomb.
Okay.
So that's all quite gruesome, And there's a house of the dead. I think it's somewhere like Malaysia, but these people, when people are too ill, they know they're going to die. Rather than leave them in a hospice, they get this house in the middle of the city, and they just lie there dying, while all their relatives outside on tables have a party in the middle of a town.
It's strange.
And it's called the House of Dead. So it's quite weird. And then it cuts to something really fun. It goes to like people drunk in Germany, in Hamburg. Watching people drunk, getting drunk in these weird bars and stuff like that. And then the next morning, it shows them, the after effects of it. They're all slumped in the street. And there's one bloke, he's standing up, asleep. He's drunk, and he walks a few steps and is asleep standing up, just stuff like that. Yeah. So
I think it's before the days of the internet, isn't it? So what goes off in different countries, unless you were a seasoned traveller, you didn't have a clue what they got up to in Borneo and places like that. So something like this at the time will have been a real eye opener. I think
big time.
You watch it now, obviously it's dated because it's such a, it was released so long ago, and you can go on the internet now and look at any type of horrific event. But I know they also, the Mondo Carn films, they also look at things like homosexuality as being really bizarre as well, don't they? Like they'll show scenes from gay clubs, which people like obviously wouldn't have ever gone in their lives, and seen two women kissing. That is like, part of the shock factor.
And people, those days, it was something that people were maybe have heard of but didn't believe existed. And it's got a very condescending voiceover by Peter Ustinov, I believe it is, and he's talking in a really sort of plummy English voice and really dismissive of these crazy foreigners and that kind of thing. And it shows this scene in this a lesbian club, and he goes, "These women are in what we call an unnatural relationship," and stuff like this. It's very of its time. Yeah, in the way it's presented. But the thing is, in these films, there's some really gruesome bits. In the second, Mondo Carn 2, it shows a Buddhist monk setting fire to himself to protest. And it shows this ritual, I think, in Italy, where people are walking the same route that Christ walked, but they're battering the back of their legs with these rocks with bits of glass in them. So they're whacking their legs until they bleed.
I've seen that bit. You can actually watch that. I think the first one is actually on YouTube. You can go on YouTube and watch. Yeah. And
it's weird because these films, there's some really horrible things in them. But what they do is they show you something like really nice or something like quite poignant, like the cargo cult. I don't know if you know about the cargo cult.
No.
But they're like a tribe, and I think, is it New Zealand or something? I think it's on the southern hemisphere, but they're a very remote tribe. They haven't got any technology, and they've seen planes flying. And what they believe these planes are is that they're like big birds taking their ancestors to heaven.
Okay.
And they believe that they can get on these planes and visit their ancestors, so they've made this big wooden plane. And they'll sit by guarding it, waiting for one of these planes to come to them, called a cargo cult. And they're basically cargo planes, but they don't realise that, and it shows that in it. But with these films, the thing is, when they show something comical or something funny, the funnier it is, or the more comical it is, the more nasty the next piece is.
Yeah.
So they try to edit it in the way that, here's something nice, here's something nice, here's something horrible, here's something nice, here's something quite horrible, here's something nice, here's something nice, here's something nice, here's something really disgusting.
And isn't then the kind of the music as well that they use over the top of the horrific things doesn't fit the actual scene. So you have some sort of 1970s light-hearted music over someone, being skinned alive or being executed or something.
It's like Morecambe and Wise stuff, and these chaps made quite a few films, these two directors. The first one was Mondo Carn, which was a big hit, and I think that it was one of these shocker films,
Yeah.
And there's Mondo Carn 2, which is pretty much continues. It's the same sort of stuff. And then they did one called Women of the World, and it shows different things that women do in the world, and it covers thalidomide even. It shows these women taking thalidomide and women in the Israeli army and stuff like that. It's really strange stuff. And then they did one called Africa a Dio, where it's at the end of the when the British Empire left Africa in the late 60s, I believe, they filmed the results, and that was quite a gruesome film. There's some really sort of horrific stuff. I mean, there's some scenes that start involving animals being hunted, which are quite hard. I find that quite hard to watch. But there's one bit where this chap who's been accused of something, he's in a prison cell, this young fella, and they take him out and they shoot him in the head in front of the cameras. There's a big fuss about that at the time, whether they coerced him to do it because the cameras were there. Would they have done it if the cameras weren't there? So there's some quite intense stuff. And for the time, it's quite explosive films. And they're quite weird. Like you say, there's this weird easy listening music and these horrific things happening at the same time.
It'd be like putting something like Tiny Tim over the top of footage of kids dying, 80s footage from Ethiopia of kids dying of starvation. It's that kind of just completely out of context, which makes it really strange viewing, to the point where you don't know whether you should laugh or be repulsed by what you're looking at. Obviously, the visuals are disgusting, but the way they're edited together is just, it's odd. It's like a really big mixing pot. And I suppose it's the birth of the films or the genre films like Faces of Death type of thing, which took things to obviously a new level. But even with Faces of Death, not all of it was real, was it? It was special effects and fake stuff interspersed with real horrific things on screen. So I suppose they're like a thinking man's video nasty.
Yeah, definitely. And the weirdest thing about this Mondo Carn, it came out in 1962, and there's one scene in it where people are in a restaurant in New York and they're eating live insects and things like this, and bugs and really weird stuff, and at the time it's repulsive. And now you've got programs like I'm a Celebrity where people do that for entertainment. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So it's quite ahead of its time. But it's really weird, because one minute you're sort of watching something humorous and you're laughing, and the next minute you're being completely horrified by something repulsive. And they are of their time, but they are films, because they are bizarre films. Yeah, they are really worth checking out, because there's some weird sort of religious cults and stuff like that, and their weird practices and weird cultural things. There's some funny things as well, but there's some and it's quite well filmed for the time. It's nicely filmed.
It got awards, didn't it? I think it was. It actually got, the first one got awards because it was seen as culturally enlightening, which at the time it was. But now you look at it and you think, oh, actually, we get other people's culture sort of forced down our throats nowadays when you see stuff that's going off in the news and everything. But at the time then, it would have been absolutely something brand new.
It was big at the time. I mean, I don't know if some of that would be successful or they'd allow it, but I mean, there was a lot of films that a lot of people other filmmakers like making Mondo this, Mondo that. Do you know what I mean? To try and cash in on it. Yeah. But it was nominated for 2 awards in 1962. It won the David Di Donatello for Best Production. That's by the Accademia del Cinema Italiano. And it's also nominated for the Palme d'Or in the 50th Cannes Festival, but it lost that. It was nominated. The theme song, More, is so in English. It's written by Norman Newell. He wrote the English lyrics.
Okay.
And that was nominated for Best Song in the Academy Awards. I don't think it won, though. I think Call Me Irresponsible won, but it was nominated. So it's quite high up in its time, I
mean, if you look at the sequel, Mondo Pazzo, I don't know if I've pronounced that right, but if you look at the synopsis about what it says, this is from IMDb, it basically says, this time round, the voyage includes vivisection, recreations of Old West lynchings, a visit to a mortician's school, transvestites, wild sex clubs, and alligator hunting. Now, apart from the Wild West lynchings, that sounds like an ideal kind of holiday type for me.
Oh, definitely. And they are interesting films. I suppose it's a bit like at the time is you could look at all these horrible and weird things without having to experience them. Yeah. That's I think how it's seen. I don't know if it's still available, but you can get them on DVD. And I have this box set, it's limited edition, I think they're numbered, and it's got loads of discs. It's got a documentary about the directors in it, but it's got director's cuts of 2 of the films. They did one called Goodbye Uncle Tom, which was it wasn't a real documentary, it was like an acted out drama. Okay. About slavery, but they go back in time as filmmakers to film it, and that's quite misjudged. I'd say the word to describe that. But there's a director's cut of that and a director's cut of the Africa a Dio film, and although they haven't they're subtitled. There's a lot more material in the Africa Dio one, which is quite intense, because it came out also at Cinemas Africa Blood and Guts, so that gives you an indication as to what the film was like, you know. But there's some really, I mean, you see stuff on the news now and we're sort of desensitized to seeing dead bodies and things like this, but they show it quite graphically.
At the time then, it's not something you might see like a really grainy photograph in the newspapers of, you know, a dead body or an execution or something, but you wouldn't physically be able to sit down and watch it on film. And I suppose these types of films enabled people to see the dark side of what was going off in the world at the time. And I don't think the world was in any darker place than it is today. I think the world has always been a dark place. You know, it's never been an ideal place to live and bring your kids up. However, at the time, it definitely shed some light on what was cracking off in the far-flung reaches of the globe.
Definitely. I think it's more accessible now because we've got more, you know, we're attached to the world now. We're connected to the world, you know. We've got, you know, things like Facebook and YouTube and stuff like that. In those days, cinema and TV and radio were the main mediums for newspapers, of course, for finding anything out. So this was quite a big thing at the time. And they're still quite riveting to watch now. Yeah, definitely. Because they've got a weird feel, because there's obviously it's got that retro feel to it. Do you know what I mean? It's a different era, and the music and the way it's done and the narration. It's a period piece, but it's a fascinating one. But there's some really weird stuff in there. You know, if people are interested in bizarre things in general, will find things of interest in these films. Yeah, definitely. I mean, it brings in the whole discussion about how old an event has to be before it becomes watchable without feeling any sort of emotion about it. You know, you feel like, for example, like the Jack the Ripper images of all the victims. I mean, you can look at those images now. For example, if you go to the London Dungeon and go on the Jack the Ripper part of the London Dungeon, there's whole sort of 6-foot images on the wall of the victims in the morgue, you know, all stitched up. And there's 6 and 7-year-old kids going through there. But the fact that it happened, you know, over 100 years ago kind of makes it acceptable. However, you wouldn't show, you know, 5-6 foot images of 5 women who were killed last week, would you? I mean, there's even that fuss before. There's an art gallery with this artist. He made a massive portrait of Maura Hindley made out of children's handprints. Yeah, I remember that one. And that wasn't a victim's photograph. That was just a picture of her, you know. And obviously he's making an artistic point and all that. But somebody went in and just threw a bucket of paint over it, destroyed it. Yeah. So that's the sort of reaction that if it's too modern or too recent, can have. Yeah, and I think it's definitely, if you're involved in bizarre magic, 9 times out of 10 you're going to be performing something about sometimes horrific event from the past, be it asylums, Jack the Ripper, even something along the lines of the Titanic, for example. You know, so many lives were lost. You're dealing with death quite a lot, but the fact that it's historical and happened a long time ago sometimes makes it more acceptable. And it's just weird how the human mind works in that way, that, you know, we can deal with it because it didn't happen in our lifetime or in our generation. So you can imagine in the future, like bizarre magicians, say 100 years in the future, pulling things out of the news that happened in our day and making putting a performance around it. Like, I don't know, for example, you look at some of the major media events like 9/11 or something, and in 150 years time there's going to be someone on stage doing maybe a performance about it, like a theatrical performance. You just can't imagine it. It's weird. I think it's while the relatives, while people are still alive that may have remembered it, that's when it's considered to be taboo. It's like, Jack the Ripper, it's fine, you can put pictures of him everywhere, so you can see the victims' bodies, but the Yorkshire Ripper, that's sort of like a no-go area. Do you know what I mean? I think because some of the victims' families are still alive and that kind of thing. Yeah. Though you do get dramas made about these things. I've seen a couple TV made ones on ITV. Was it the Fred West thing? What's it called? Appropriate Adult. And also the See No Evil, which is the Moors Murderers one. And both those were well filmed, and I think they were done respectfully. But they're still covering an area which is sensitive to some people. Yeah, I think with it being done in a documentary there, you've definitely got some control over how it's portrayed. And if it's done in the drama ones, they are done in a kind of a more morose, atmospheric type way, aren't they? Like the Reece Shearsmith one, The Widowmaker.
about the chap who used to marry women and then drug them up and kill them for their money. That was really it was very dark and depressing all the way through, and you definitely got the feel for it. And you would feel that if you was a relative of one of those women, you could watch it knowing that Kevin, the killer, wasn't being portrayed in a favourable light, which I think is sometimes you can lose that with other forms of media. Like, for example, with Jack the Ripper, you can get a Jack the Ripper board game, which, can you imagine in 10, 20 years' time, a Moors Murderers, the board game or something? It's crazy. But it's the same thing. It's still a person taking away innocent human lives.
Exactly.
You can buy a board game about it, or T-shirts, and it's strange. It's
songs as well. Screaming All Such did a Jack the Ripper song in the 60s, didn't he?
Yeah.
I think Jack the Ripper was sort of almost perceived, when I was a kid, he was considered to be like Frankenstein, Dracula. It was just a boogeyman. It wasn't. I suppose when I was very young, it wasn't considered to be a real thing that happened.
No.
I think because of the foggy Victorian streets and not knowing who he was, he's more considered to be like a film character, really, rather than somebody who was real. And it's kind of taken away the reality of the situation. Yeah,
definitely. I mean, I think these Mondo Carne films, for the first time, portrayed, even take away the soundtrack and the sarcastic kind of narration over the top. It was the first time you could see something for yourself without hearing about it second hand or reading it in a book.
Definitely. And they were quite a sensation at the time, although they're sort of forgotten now because things have replaced that. At the time, there were people, they were shocking, people going to cinema, and there's all sorts of fuss, people coming out of them being sick and all this kind of stuff. They were considered to be quite heavy going. And it was a genre of itself. After that, there's a lot of people did different things. There's a Mondo Bizarro, a Mondo this, Mondo that. And the ones that aren't the official ones, some of them, the quality's not as good. It's the Mondo Carne, Mondo Carne 2, Africa Dia. They're the best ones because they were the original ones. And there's some of the ones that spun off from that. Some of them are good, but they're not as graphic or as bizarre as the original ones.
Brilliant. So if you've got a bit of a strong stomach and don't mind a bit of some being slightly disturbed, then we can both thoroughly recommend the Mondo Carne series. And as I say, you can view the first one. It's actually on YouTube, so just type it in and away you go. So there we go, Freddie. Come to the end of another episode of the Mystic Menagerie podcast. So we're looking at nearly 2 hours this one. Me and you could just keep chatting for ages though, couldn't we?
I know, there's so much we can talk about, and there's stuff we haven't covered which we'll have to cover next time. So it's Doomsday.
Yeah, definitely.
And also about how to back the podcast as well. We'll bring that up next time as well.
Of course, yeah. We've had a lot of people writing in and on the forums and that, wondering how they can donate to the Mystic Menagerie podcast. Well, me and Freddie have come up with a solution to that, and we're going to cover that in the next episode. But just to give you a bit of an insight, we're going to do a Kickstarter campaign where you can make a donation to the Mystic Menagerie and also get something nice out of it in the process. So we'll cover that more in the next episode. Yep, definitely. So people can, so you can feel part of it. There's something very special with this Kickstarter. So I think that fans who followed us from day one will be interested in this. So yeah, we'd like to thank you all for listening and spending a couple of hours with myself and Dan. Yeah, thanks a lot. It's been a real pleasure, and see you next time. Yeah, take care, and bolt the doors. Bye. Bye.
She is Daniela, possessed with an evil that is older than time itself. An evil that turns her life into a bloody nightmare. The legend of the Wolf Woman. Now you can see Daniela's reincarnation in a true story so brutal, so horrifying, that it was kept from the public for over a century. The legend of the Wolf Woman, rated R.